I'm going to give you the bad news first. The bad news is that NPR thought they had a great scoop. They realized that with Michael Cohen pleading guilty to these new charges, where apparently they were talking with Russia about a deal to build a skyscraper in Moscow, and originally he said it ended in January. Then he pled guilty that he lied. It actually ended in June. And then someone said, wait a minute. Donald Trump Jr. claimed there was a deal that ended in 2014. Boom! Donald Trump Jr. lied. NPR rushed to the press to get the story out saying, we got you. Dude, you lied. And then everyone starts sharing tweets saying, whoa, my stars and garters, Donald Trump Jr., they're coming for you. You're going to go to jail for perjury. And then NPR realized, oh, wait a minute, the testimony we were reading was about something else. That's the good news. The good news is that NPR realized their mistake and issued a correction. Okay, that's great. I love when these news organizations issue a correction. The problem is, what ends up happening is the truth goes to a specific crowd and the lie goes to a different crowd, thus splitting everybody continually in half. When NPR published the story saying this is true, the left ran with it, all excited saying, guys, this is it. Donald Trump Jr. has been busted. They're going to come for him. And then when they issue a correction, Donald Trump Jr. goes, everybody look, this is proof they lied. And the right shares it among the right. Thus, the two different spheres just shared two different stories. And now people will be completely confused as to what is really going on. This is NPR's fault. They rushed the gun, and that's the worst news. So it's great they issued a correction. Bravo, NPR, but it doesn't matter. Your irresponsible behavior is causing serious problems for us. Let's think about the ramifications of that. You're going to find someone who follows Democratic politicians, who tweeted the original story and had the correction saying Donald Trump Jr. is busted, he's a liar. They were working with Putin, during the campaign because they're going to use it to allude to collusion. Now imagine you're sitting down with that family member, and you say, hey, that never happened, right? That was fake. And they go, no, you're lying. I saw it from, so-and-so politician. They said it was true. And you say, no, literally it's fake. It's not a real story. They go, oh, great. Here you go. Fake news. Yeah, if there's ever a story that's something bad about Trump, you don't want to believe it. Now you have two people who don't trust each other because they're getting different news from different people. How many left-wing politicians and activists and journalists are going to correct the record? There is a journalist who I followed, and I actually met once, and I had respect for, who just deletes tweets without saying anything, and I've been so entirely disappointed by this behavior. She will put out total fake news, jump the gun, and then once it comes out it's fake, just quietly delete it. Yeah, that's better than nothing, but you've already lied to a bunch of people and convinced them of something that isn't true. Well, let's see exactly what happened with NPR, what happened with the story, and what Donald Trump Jr. had to say. This is from the Daily Wire. NPR thought it had a scoop on Friday following on the heels of the Manafort plea deal and a spurious Guardian report that the former Trump campaign chair met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange just as he was joining the campaign. NPR's Philip Ewing reported that Donald Trump Jr.'s 2017 testimony conflicts with Cohen's account of Russia talks, heavily suggesting that the president's son lied to the Senate Judiciary Committee about his father's business negotiations involving Russia. Taking just a small snippet of the exchange between Trump Jr. and Senate Judiciary members, Ewing makes it look like the president's son would be in much more trouble as President Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who just pled guilty to lying about discussions between Trump and Moscow about potentially building a Trump Tower there. Here's how NPR categorized the exchange. Trump Jr. told the Senate committee in September 2017 that although there had been negotiations surrounding prospective Trump Tower in Moscow, they concluded without result at the end of 2014. But not in 2015 or 2016, Trump Jr. was asked. Certainly not 16, he said. There was never a definitive end to it. It just died of deal fatigue. Trump's account contrasts with the new version of events given by Cohen on Thursday in a guilty plea in federal court. In that new version, Cohen says the discussions with at least one Russian government official and others in Moscow continued through June 2016, well into Trump's presidential campaign. The problem is that NPR took two different circumstances and conflated them. Donald Trump Jr. was talking about a very specific deal, saying it concluded in 2014. That deal ended. There was a different talk. There was a different deal, totally unrelated, and they talked about it. The Federalist's Molly Hemingway looked into the testimony and found that if one were to look even just a sentence or two before what NPR shared, one would see Trump Jr. was talking about a different set of negotiations, which also fizzled. Before we get to that, a little more background. 100 pages before the exchange highlighted NPR, Trump Jr. responded to another question about the Trump Organization pursuing a development deal in Moscow. It's been reported that in late 2015 or 2016, when now President Trump was running for the office of Trump Organization, the Trump Organization was pursuing a plan to develop a massive Trump Tower in Moscow. Is that accurate? Yes. Back to the exchange NPR highlighted, which, as Hemingway noted, was completely contradicted by what Trump Jr. said earlier in his testimony. Trump Jr. was asked if he knew about the deal to work with Cohen on a Trump Tower in Moscow in 2015. Trump Jr. said he knew his father signed a letter of intent, but that he himself didn't know much about it. The Senate investigator then asked him if he knew if anyone else was also looking to work with the Trump Organization to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Here's the full exchange, which includes 2 questions asked just before the exchange NPR cited. In this same time frame, 2015 or 2016, when Mr. Sater and Mr. Cohen were exploring a possible deal, do you know if anyone else was also exploring a deal simultaneously with the Trump Organization to build in Moscow? I don't believe so. We've discussed the Agalarov family, Emin and his father Aras. Do you know if they were also exploring building a Trump Tower in Moscow? And he said, we had looked at it earlier than that, but it sort of faded away, I believe, at the end of 2014. But not 15 or 16, certainly not 16. There was never a definitive end to it. It just died of deal fatigue. The quote pulled by NPR was specifically about the Agalarov family, Emin and his father Aras. That's it. That deal with those people went up in 2014, and something else came to be that they actually mentioned. That in 2015 and 16, Sater and Cohen were exploring a deal. Why did NPR jump the gun? Could it be that there's a nefarious conspiracy and the journalists lied on purpose? I do not believe that's the case. NPR is actually considered to be rather trustworthy. It's one of the most trusted news organizations in the country. The issue is journalists are lazy. Journalists get things wrong. Sometimes journalists are ideologically driven and they see the confirmation bias. In this instance, you want to know what I believe? I think this journalist saw this and went, oh, I just realized, oh my God, I got something. I better write it up before someone else does because they want to be first. And NPR made the mistake of not having it run through the system, or even worse, it ran through the system where the editors reviewed it, the fact checkers fact-checked it, and they still didn't find that it was wrong. Thus, NPR had to issue a lengthy correction. Now their story makes no sense whatsoever at all. They still have the story up, and it literally makes no sense. The new headline is something like, Cohen testimony draws questions to Donald Trump Jr. What questions? We have the transcript here. We know exactly what they're talking about. You jumped the gun. You screwed up. Take the article down. Why won't they? That's the extremely worst news. Look, it's great that they corrected it, but you have the fact that they wrote the bad story in the first place, that it's negatively impacting people who don't follow Donald Trump Jr. and don't want, and they're not going to get the truth, and they didn't take the story down. They just put a correction in front of it, but the implication still exists. And that is where it gets extremely bad. And this is why people call the news fake news. Because look, man, it's simple. Take the article down, plain and simple. Clearly, Trump Jr. was talking about the Agalarov family, and not the deal with Cohen as NPR reported. If you still aren't convinced, the new question and answer make it clear the discussion is about the Agalarov family. And this is from the testimony, how did that deal first come about? Mr. Futerfas, which, just for clarification, Mr. Prevor, the Agalarovs in 2014. Forgive me, Futerfas. I could not pronounce your name right, and I probably just did it wrong again. It took NPR 5 hours to delete a tweet from its main account, stoking the narrative created by the false story, and to add an editor's note, which reads, an earlier version of this report mischaracterized an answer Donald Trump Jr. gave to Senate investigators in 2017 about the prospective projects his family was negotiating with Moscow. I'm not going to read the rest of the note because you get the idea, and I've explained it to you already. The article was not retracted, even though its entire premise was incorrect. The title was changed to Cohen's account of Russia talks raises questions about Trump Jr.'s 27 testimony, even though there are no questions, except for why NPR didn't even do a little bit of legwork to make sure it was accurately reporting something. Take the article down. Are you kidding me? The article remains up. The premise makes no sense. You didn't read the testimony. You screwed up. Admit your faults. Don't slap on some editor's note. Slap on a flat, massive correction. We were wrong. The article has been deleted. Is that so difficult? Apparently it is. The body of the article no longer includes the clipped language and has to strain to make Trump Jr. look involved. This is what it looks like now, apparently. Trump Jr. told the Senate Judiciary Committee in September 2017 that he was only peripherally aware of negotiations that Cohen has admitted to carrying on through 2016. Cohen said in his guilty plea that he had briefed Trump's family members about his talks, although the court documents don't specify who. Trump Jr. also told Senate investigators that he wasn't aware that Cohen had reached out to the press secretary for Vladimir Putin as part of his talks with Moscow about a putative new Trump Tower project there. So the NPR story went from Trump Jr. lied to Congress to a media outlet trying to save face by reporting on an exchange that happened a year ago. Plain and simple. And this is what really bothers me about the media. Because NPR is supposed to be one of the better news organizations, and they are. And this just shows that how are we supposed to trust anybody when they won't even take down a story? Okay, look, I'll say this. Is it good news they corrected the article? 100%. The article should have been taken down. So we still have really bad news. The fact remains that when a news organization as prestigious as NPR is wrong, instead of admitting they were wrong, they just do their best to weasel out of it. And therein lies the problem with mainstream media and the fake news. Plain and simple. Anyway, it's time for me to go. I got more videos up on this channel. Just click the little name Timcast, look at all the videos I got, or just wait till the end of this video and then things pop up and you can click those too. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you all tomorrow.